with myself and I'll pass it over to Jason. My name is Levi Silva. I've been working for HRS for nearly 2 years now. Spent about 10 years or so working within SaaS sort of startup environments, predominantly for North American organizations, bringing new innovative tech over to the UK. Very, very pleased to be at HRS, really at a pivotal time. Generally speaking, I don't like using COVID and bringing post-COVID in because it's already so far behind us. But I think as an industry, it's great to be involved, not just with HRS, but as the industry during post-COVID and recovery and sort of travel being back, essentially, to sort of normal travel habits, which is great to see. Everyone, all organizations, our customers, really flourishing generally through spend. And I'm sure you as buyers, as perhaps travel managers on the call, are seeing very much of the same. And so, yeah, that's myself. Pleasure to be here. I could talk about myself for a while, so I'll pass it over to Jason before I go on for too long. Over to you, Jason.
Yeah, thanks, Levi. So as you can see there, Jason Long, I'm the SVP of Global Business Development. I've been in this organization now for over 10 years, nearly 11 years, actually. I've been in the travel technology arena for 20 years. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. I see more people are joining as we're speaking now, so welcome aboard. What we're going to do today is talk about paying for travel, in particular focusing in on the hospitality, the accommodation and lodging sector, which is where HRS specialise. So just before we sort of get into the main content, what I thought I would do for the benefit of people who are not familiar with the HRS brand, just give you a little bit of background about who we are. We're a company with 50 years heritage now, but I'd say really in the last 10 years, 15 years or so, the company has really pivoted in towards travel technology for the lodging and accommodation community. And by that, I mean, we build and design our own technology, and we've built a platform. You can see essentially what that platform is here today. It's one platform that is built through, with three major pillars, I would say, three major components. We have a procurement engine, a procurement platform that allows us to help negotiate rates, hotel rates on behalf of our clients. Very sophisticated platform. Once we've done that and helped you negotiate your rates, we then load those rates automatically into a system to be booked, be it our own technology or be it in something like Concur, SAP Concur, Amadeus Citrix, KDS, and etc., all the other online booking tools. And finally, we also have our payment technology, which is the focus of today's discussion. And all of these concepts that I will talk about today are applicable not just on what we call the regular transient spend, which is the sort of regular business travel, where you stay 1, 2, 3 nights in a hotel, then go back to base sort of thing. These principles that we'll talk about today and some of the challenges also apply to meetings and groups, to long stay, to relocation. In fact, anywhere where you are placing people, not necessarily even just to sleep in a hotel, but maybe in a meeting room. You know, look at us now. Myself and Levi are hybrid, working right now, working from home. That's quite common now. And also a lot of people, because they're working more from home, they are getting together in meetings and groups, not necessarily in their corporate premises, because a lot of corporates have reduced real estate, right? So a lot of the transactions that we process now are just in spaces, in hotels or venues, for meetings. Perhaps no one's even sleeping there, but it still needs to be paid for. So that's what we do. So in essence, we've created what we call a digital marketplace between you guys on the call, the corporate community, and the hospitality, the hotel community. And we bring the two sides together. And we're going to be talking a little bit about our technology today, as I said, in the payment arena. So that's a little snapshot of HRS.
Okay, so appreciate that, Jason. So HRS seem to cover a lot of different things, but predominantly and really only around the accommodation or lodging space. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about payment and the challenges in the areas around that, Levi.
Okay, sorry. So why pay, right? So we do lots of things, and the industry has lots of sort of solutions in general. Why the focus on pay specifically?
The reason why we're focusing on pay is because it's a mess, quite frankly, and it's not under control. And I think there's lots of opportunity for all of us in the industry to optimize the payment side of accommodation. So let me share with you actually a few of the challenges that we see. So that's a nice segue into this slide here. This is some of the challenges and the trends that we're seeing now based on the current state of the economy. All this can affect the payment of business travel as well. So let me explain a little. Whoops. First of all, at the moment, there's a lot of economic uncertainty. Corporates, they need to plan. They need to understand where they'll be traveling, what they should be investing in. For that, you need data and you need good information about the state of the economy, about travel, bringing it to travel patterns, etc. But most of the organizations we work with struggle to be able to forecast because they don't have the underlying data. If you can't collect data, you can't measure, and then you can't manage. It's a problem. Cash management as well is a problem because the economy is inflation's going on. The economies are tanking. It's very important to be able to control cash flow to keep a healthy balance sheet, and that's very important to all organizations as well. At the same time, what we're seeing is a war for talent. So there's employee retention is becoming very, very important to the corporate community, making sure that there's good well-being of travelers, that they experience, and the general work environment of the travelers is good. And these are sort of mega trends in the industry for corporates. But when it comes to travel, it breaks down. And this is interesting when you look at data, and I do this all the time, when I'm out meeting prospects, corporate prospects, I speak to corporates almost daily, and I say to them, look, give me your spend data. Show me what you're spending on travel so we can analyze that to see if we can optimize that, find savings and find opportunities. And I would say almost every corporate that I engage with has a problem there. They struggle to get the data, in particular on the hotel side, got to say, in particular. And when it comes to cash management, when you ask corporates, how are your employees paying for hotels? How are you paying for hotels? It's very, very old school. People paying by themselves, sometimes even in cash, using vouchers. I'm based in Madrid. A lot of the Spanish community, business travel community, still use a voucher type concept with people scrambling around in the background, trying to pull all that together afterwards, post-stay. Very, very inefficient. And when it comes to travel and the traveler, we can see there's lots of admin, lots of back-end processing, old tools and technology. And basically, it's just very, very, very frustrating.
Okay, so that's fantastic. So the challenge is pay, but it sounds like to me that the challenge is also data, right? So, I mean, is there an intrinsic connection between data and the pay challenges that clients are having at the moment?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Let me explain to the audience, and I can see more people are joining now, which is great. Thank you. Let me do a bit of theory for you, a bit of practical knowledge here. In the industry, we all refer to level 1, level 2, level 3 data. Let me explain what that is to those who you are unaccustomed to this. Level 1 data is essentially the data that you get, the information that you get from your credit card payment organizations. We all get this at the end of the month when you review your Visa or MasterCard statement. You know when the payment was made, you know to whom, the merchant, and you know the price. But you don't know what it was on. You just get this like itemized report, and it's helpful to a certain extent, but it doesn't really give you the granularity you need. You can get additional information, what we call level 2 data. So if you're in a hotel booking and you're using an online booking tool, for example, the online booking tool will capture the hotel name, the name of the traveler, the arrival date and departure, number of room nights, and you can augment that with your payment data to see how much was actually spent in the hotel. But still, it doesn't give you the true insight into what was spent, right? What you really need there is the invoice data. And once you collect the invoice data, that means that you have not only the hotel, but the actual expenditure in the hotel, broken down by the room rate, the tax, incidentals, anything extra that was paid for within the hotel is on that invoice. And that can be very, very valuable. The problem in the industry right now is that a lot of organizations are still using providers and technologies that are, I would say, a legacy and don't give you that full visibility. So if you're using a TMC that's using a GDS, you can ask your TMC, hey, give me a view of what was booked in the hotels. But the probability is from the GDS and booking tool perspective, it's maximum level 2 data. You can get your credit card information from your provider, but that will be level 1 data. And also you see the areas for optimization here in this graph that are marked in the little orange squares here. This is another phenomenon which is interesting is, if you rely on your TMC to get your GDS data, because that's where the bookings were done, that's good. But actually 75% of the world's hotels are not distributed through a GDS. 75%. So you can't rely on that data set from the TMC if your users and your travelers or your providers are using different systems. On the online booking tools, we know from our experience that really the online booking tools on average are only collecting 50% of the hotel spend. On air, it's a lot higher, but on the hotel side, there's a lot of maverick for various reasons, which we can get into. And also on the credit card side, even if you have a program with a provider, it's not always used, right? Quite often the travelers are using their own technology or their own method of payment. So it's not that efficient. The only way to get around this and to get that true transparency is to get the invoice. The level 3 data only comes from the invoice. And that's what we do in HRS, right? So we have a mechanism to connect with each and any hotel, not just GDS hotels, which is primarily chain hotels and larger hotels, but any hotel, even independent hotels in any market. So we have a technology that allows us to grab the invoice. So once we have the invoice, what do we do with that? Why is that important? We can scan and take the information from that invoice and break it down into various different buckets. Once we itemize that invoice, we can then map what's on the invoice into service codes. And that's where the power happens, because then we can start to aggregate all this data together to look for trends and to look for areas of optimization. What we also do, because we map this into a digital format, we can then do checks, right? So that's what makes it interesting, Levy, because we can start checking the VAT numbers, the addresses. We can start checking to make sure what was actually purchased in the hotel applies to policy. And we do those checks. And you can only do that if you get this invoice data. But once you got the data, it's not just getting the data itself that's interesting. It's what you can do with that, what it gives you as an organization. So let me give you very quickly 5 different use cases here. First thing is process cost savings. Because we are doing a lot of the automation there, a lot of the digitization of what was previously manual, that saves a lot of time, which saves a lot of money. And from our research, on average, it takes around about 22 minutes to process and break down an invoice manually and put that into an expense management system. That's typically what travelers do today, right? They get the invoice, they might scan it or whatever, but when they get back to the office, they need to make sure it's put into the expense system and broken down. This was the hotel, this was the breakfast, this was parking, etc. It's a lot of time. You add that 22 minutes up for every single time one of your travelers travels, it becomes a big cost to your organization. The invoice validation, I mentioned that already. If you see, when you get back to the office, you see that the hotel overcharged you, what are you going to do? You have to call the hotel, get a new invoice, manually sort that out. That's a big pain in the backside for anybody as well. One of the benefits, another benefit, key benefit from actually having a quality assured invoice for every booking, remember, would be that if the invoice was eligible for VAT reclaim, and in many countries that's the case, you can guarantee that the local regulatory authority, the government of the destination you're traveling to, will give you that money back. Now, what's interesting to me is most of the clients that I meet and engage with, when I ask them about VAT reclaim, hardly anyone is really doing that, maybe in pockets, but not systematically across the entire hotel spend. That's something that we can do, and that can run into millions if your hotel have annual hotel turnover is in the millions. You know, VAT can be up to 22%. And you're quite legally entitled to that money back in certain instances, but most organizations aren't doing it because you're relying on the traveler, paper, invoicing, correction, very manual. It's just not worth the hassle. What I mentioned before, once we can itemize and group together this expenditure, we can then analyze that and use that to the benefit of you guys, your organization. So let me give you a brief example of that. You know, we feed all this data is fed into our machine, and as I mentioned, it's broken down into 3 pillars. It's the procurement, the booking, and the payment. But because we get this granularity of data, we can see what was actually spent in which destinations, in which hotels, right down to the invoice. And that could be useful to maybe slightly re-engineer your hotel program. So for example, if we see that your travelers are spending a lot on incidentals, let's say parking in a particular hotel, we feed that information into our procurement platform and procurement teams, so then we can renegotiate with that hotel and say, hey, you know what, we're spending all this extra money in the hotel, we want that to be included. Or we could even switch properties to a property on the other side of the street where parking was free. I think that gives you a good indication of the power of this data. And what I always say, it's like the platforms that you can build now using AI and advanced technologies means that the more these systems are used, the more relevant we can make the offerings to travelers and to corporates. And also the more relevant and interesting it is to the providers, because we can share information about corporate behavior. Very similar to Amazon. I'm sure a lot of you on this call have bought stuff on Amazon. As you know, when you use Amazon, the more you use it, the more relevant it becomes, because it learns about you, starts showing you more relevant products. And also Amazon is sharing information with the providers in terms of pricing strategies, marketing information, so they can so they can showcase their products better and get more revenues. That's essentially what HRS does between the corporate community and the hotel community with our platform. The more it's used, the more we can understand your behaviors, what you wish, your objectives, and we can make it more relevant for you whilst we share that information also with the hotel community. That clear, Levy?
Yeah, so I've got 2 questions for you. That's very clear. I've got 2 questions for you. My first question is, on the previous slide, you said in invoice collection unlocks essentially 100% of level 3 data, right? So my first question is it truly 100%? As in, if a particular customer, I had a customer the other day and they were saying, well, we've got a particular requirement that is needed on our invoice, can they add it in? So is it truly 100%? And my second question is, before you answer that, my second question is as well, so we've discussed level 1, level 2, level 3 data. I've actually also had this term about level 4 data. What is that, and can you elaborate? So I've got 2 questions there.
Yeah, let me take the first one first. Yeah, if you get that invoice, that's the gold, right? Because that has all this the information on that, and we can break that down and get 100%. We can collect that invoice from any property that is booked through our system. And bear in mind our systems as well. We have our own connectivity to the hotels, which is very important because we can follow up on issues with the hotels if there's an issue with the invoice. But also these days we've connected to multiple sources because we know that our clients are looking at Booking.com and Expedia, the GDSs to a certain extent, and other OTAs around the world. So we also connect to these organizations as well to bring in that content. And the payment mechanisms that we have and the technology can also work to the content that we get from those providers as well. So in terms of, can we get 100%? Yes, if it's booked through the HRS technology, because we have all the hotel inventory in there, and the technology works on all of those hotels. Be it a small independent small hotel in a tier 2 city in China, or one of the major chains such as Marriott or IHG. Once we get the invoice from those hotels, we can give 100% visibility. You mentioned also level 4. Yeah, that's an interesting. Let me just share my screen again. Level 4 data is something that HRS coined, and it refers to the fact that a lot of the corporate community are now asking for richer data, more data with respect to the hotels and the venues and the accommodation providers that they are putting their staff in. Now, let me explain a little bit. The obvious one, the big trending one at the moment is sustainability. HRS has developed a technology where we're taking the energy consumption figures and KPIs from the hotels, the water consumption figures and KPIs from the hotels, the waste management processes and KPIs from the hotels. We can do that directly because we're privileged, because we connect with the hotel. So we take this data, and that allows us to give a CO2 footprint for that specific hotel, for that specific traveler. We can do that for any hotel. And we basically boil that down into readable and digestible numbers that the traveler and that your travel manager or procurement specialist can understand, because we actually put this data into our procurement platform. So when you're designing your hotel program, you can see which hotels are more sustainable or not. And that's an example of a richer set of data. We call it level 4 data, but it doesn't stop at sustainability. Obviously, the savings is driven by the price, and we've always had that, the price and the rates of the hotels. But safety is another one that was very important during COVID, probably not as trending today, but these are the procedures and the processes that the hotels put in place for COVID. We can bring that data into the platform as well, so you can see that. Security and traveler well-being. Are my LGBTQ community of staff safe in the area and hotel in that particular destination? I need information about that because I need to look after my staff. Satisfaction is becoming very important as well. So we have mechanisms for our customers to input their own view of the hotel in their stay, but we're also taking third-party data out from trusted organizations as well. So you can review the satisfaction and the quality of the hotel. Incidentally, what we're seeing is there's a trend at the moment where a lot of our clients are really pushing for savings, but they're not taking those savings in cash savings. They're channeling the savings into a better hotel experience. And that goes back to what I was saying about traveler retention and the experience. You want your travelers to have a good time. So if you can use systems like HRS to drive savings, it could be interesting to then push those savings into a better quality of hotel experience. And in essence, all these different data sets you need in your platform, or you need from your providers, so you can make informed decisions. If you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult. That's what HRS means by level 4 data, Levy. Is that clear?
Okay. Yeah, that is very clear. So I've got another question for you. So HRS can unlock level 3 and essentially give clients access to level 4 data. How is it that HRS are positioned to collect so much data, right? So we've got level 3, which isn't really available in the market. You've got level 4 data, which also isn't necessarily available in the market, certainly through a single provider. How is it that HRS is able to collect all of this for their customers?
Well, primarily, it's because we have a long-standing relationship and connectivity with the hotels. As I mentioned, right at the start, this company's been in the market for 50 years, building connectivity to the hotel community. We're like a distribution platform. We're like a very, very, very big GDS that takes all content from all markets with respect to hospitality. And because we own that last mile, that connectivity, we have technology that faces the hotels. And if you think about it, it's a logical extension. For years, we've been taking content and rates and room descriptions and photos and all sorts of content from the hotel so we can better position them in our platform. We're just extending the principle to take extra data sets, be it sustainability, be it security, safety KPIs, whatever. And I'm sure in the future, there'll be something else that the buyer community needs from the providers. We might not have it today, but because we have this technology that's hotel facing, it's easy for these hotels to input that information into HRS. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that. So, okay, so coming back to sort of the hotel and the payment challenges. So we have established that sort of payment and data is very much intrinsically linked. But before you said hotels were old school, right? What does that mean?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna answer that with a question. Let me just find the right slide. There we go, guys. So if can you see that? No. Hold on, lost my mouse. There we go. Right. Here's the question to everyone on the call now, and I can see there's even more that I've joined from quite a few different markets, which is great. When was the last time that you booked a flight? Well, this is on business. When was the last time you guys booked a flight? And then when you went through the airport, you actually went up to a little booth, queued up, and got your credit card out and paid for that flight. And then asked for an invoice. So you could take that invoice back to the office, input the data into a system and get reimbursed. Obviously, you don't do that, right? That's crazy. You just don't do that. But why do you do that for your hotels? Why do you do that for your travelers when it comes to hotels? There's absolutely no need in today's environment to trouble your traveler, your employee, to get a physical credit card or a voucher or cash or whatever they're doing out in a hotel and pay. Yeah, there's no need. Why are you doing that? That's why I'm saying today it's very old school. We have the technology and the ability to eliminate that step. By the way, you don't just get better transparency and reduce fraud and all the benefits of having centralized payments. It also benefits the traveler. You don't check out. When I leave the hotel now, I obviously use HRS when I book, I just walk out. I don't need to queue up and collect an invoice. That's a great benefit when you're late for a meeting on a wet Wednesday morning, or you need to run off to the airport. It's and that's what I mean by old school. And Levy, because the hotel market is so fragmented, the payment mechanisms are so old school, that's driving massive leakage. It's a real reason. The figures here on the left explain that. Typically in the corporate community, leakage on flights is less than 10%. Most travelers do the right thing. They go to the TMC, they go to the online booking tool, they book the flight because it's easy. You don't have to pay for it, no reimbursement, it's easy. When it comes to hotels, we know through analysis it's not the same. Roughly 50% of the hotel spend transient of an organization is done by the traveler themselves and using or other people doing it on their behalf. And what we see is if we centralize on payment and use the same techniques that you guys are doing on flights, but bring that to the hotel community, we see that drives significant adoption.
I'm going to pause you there for a second, Jason. So what we're saying is that, and just for clarity, right? If a corporate can essentially hold on to their program and enable their travelers to pay through a centralized payment, would they potentially see sort of leakages or adoption to the levels that they would see in air, or is that the relevance there? Is that the order there?
Well, that would be beautiful. We certainly see a trend to that, right? We definitely see more compliance. I don't think we're ever going to see the same amount of compliance in hotels to air for a simple reason, right? There's just FYI, there are only around about 250 airlines that, more or less, 250 airlines control 95% of all international travel. Most of those airlines are distributed through the GDS, right? So you got, there's two things there. Limited number of suppliers and a distribution mechanism that captures most of the suppliers. You know where to go to negotiate, and it's easier to get access to those fares and book those fares. On the hotel side, Levy, you've got at least 600,000 hotels on this planet. Nobody really knows. Not to mention all the other alternative accommodation providers that are in the market now. And there's not one single platform that addresses all that community. Probably HRS is the furthest along that path. But it's, as I mentioned before, the GDS itself only captures 25% of those hotels. So it's completely fragmented. So we're always going to struggle. But I do think passionately that technology such as HRS's will drive adoption and to decrease that and to get it close to where air is today. Let me walk you through the traveler journey. This might really put it into an interesting image for you to digest, right? So this is basically the traveler journey, the before and after picture. So the before, let's say the legacy way of working are the gray areas, and the black area at the bottom would be what HRS brings to the table. So typically before, Joe, the employee, he books his travel. He could do that through a TMC online booking tool or whatever. If they are using central payment or virtual credit card technology, they actually, with existing providers, there is a big chance of that being rejected by the hotel. You know, it's up to 35% rejected. But let's assume it goes through and the hotel accepts the payment. The traveller himself has to go to the hotel, collect the invoice, correct that invoice, digitize that, maybe scan it, put it into the expense management system. Then somebody from the back office, admin, finance, or treasury, whoever it is in your organization, accounting, they would verify that, they would look at that, they would, if there was errors again, they would have to manage that, and so on and so forth. So you can see there's a big burden on the traveler to maybe pay themselves with their own credit card, or if they are using virtual credit cards, that could be eliminated, but still there's effort on the traveler. Certainly in the corporate back office, there is effort as well, and more people looking at this. Now, if you now contrast that with the black line at the bottom, if you use the technology that we provide, we will, the traveler still books as they were, no change there at all. They're still using Concur, Amadeus, KDS, whatever it is, or the TMC. But the difference is, because we have this relationship with the hotels, we can essentially guarantee that the payment instructions and the mechanism will work in the hotels, because we have that relationship. So we see very, very little in terms of unaccepted payments. We can essentially guarantee that the hotel will accept it. At the same time, because of that relationship, we can essentially guarantee that we can collect the invoice. And if for whatever reason there's an error in that invoice, we have automated procedures to go back to the hotel to ensure we get the right invoice that reflects reality, and therefore we can use for all those benefits that I mentioned before. We do that, right? So you can see a common trend here. There's no need to verify in the back office, because it's a guaranteed clean receipt. It's error-free. So you can see what we're doing here. We're saving a lot of time for the traveler themselves, more convenient, and also a lot of time within the organization themselves in terms of reconciliation. And just to put some numbers to that, because does it increase adoption? Do we see the benefits of that? Yes, we do. That's the number for you. That's the average that we're seeing today. An increase of adoption through the online channels of 23%. It becomes so convenient for the traveler. They just say, well, I'm not going to book it anyway. I'm not going to do it myself. I'm not going to get my secretary to do it, or my colleague in Hong Kong to book the hotels. I'm just going to do it because if I do it through this system, the managed channel, which is what you want, if I do it through the managed channel, it's going to be stickier, it's going to be easier. I don't need to get involved. And that's what we see.
Okay, and I suppose that makes sense. I suppose also from the air perspective, what we were saying before, if essentially custom or corporates gave their traveler community the choice of paying for the airline or versus themselves, they almost definitely choose the corporate payment option, which is obviously why they've got such high managed travel. So it's good to see that correlation there. 23% is a huge increase, obviously. And that's good to see that we're seeing that from our customers already. And that is, again, the average that we're seeing, 23% from our current customers that take up payments. They are automatically seeing an average, not a minimum, but an average of 23% increase in adoption and into the managed program. This is the perfect time to pause. I've got a question from someone here, and again, to everyone else who would like to and hasn't, please do use the Q&A function. The question here reads as follows: how do you get the itemized data for our breakdown if the hotel charges one lump sum on their invoice?
How do we get an itemized? So sorry, just repeat the question for me.
Yeah, so just to the slide before, you said essentially we'll go down and we'll collect all the invoicing on behalf of the traveler. But if the hotel is giving the traveler in that moment a complete 100%, so your overall spend at this hotel is 500 euros, right? How are we getting an itemized invoice if the hotel is giving the traveler a complete sum?
But yeah, that's a great use case, because that can happen. Right? It shouldn't happen, obviously. But what we can do is we can correlate what was spent in the hotel, like one lump sum, against what was booked. And if we see, for example, the rate was 100, but the hotel's charging 250, we know there's an error there. You know, we know that doesn't match. So we have algorithms to basically kick off an interaction with the hotel to say, hey, what you've put on your invoice doesn't reflect what was booked. And that's the beauty of using HRS, because if you book on our engine, we know exactly what was booked and what should be booked according to policy. And if we see a disconnect on the invoice side, then we trigger connections with the hotel and get the hotel to resend a correct invoice. It's the same if, for example, if you had a policy where breakfast was breakfast was included, which is more typical. If you have breakfast is included, but we see on the invoice that actually there's a charge for breakfast, the same thing. The algorithms will kick in, we'll put that on a queue, boom. Then we'll connect with the hotel and we'll say, hey, Mr. Hotel, we know when you accepted this booking, you accepted that breakfast would be included, but we can see you've charged that as an extra charge. And then we would get the hotel to resolve that and essentially to give the money back that they've robbed. Hopefully that answers that question to
it does, but I'm just gonna go back at it before we move on. So how do we itemize it? So is it because we have access to what's being booked, we then go ahead and itemize it? And will HRS even to the extent go in and go back to the hotel and say, well, this invoice isn't itemized, we need it itemized? What's the process there?
Yes, to the last part. So what we do is when we configure the systems, we look at the policy of our clients to see what is included and what isn't included, breakfast, parking, amenities, so on and so forth. And these instructions are pushed to the hotel in the payment process. This is why, again, HRS can essentially guarantee adoption. We're trending at 99% acceptance of payment, because we know the hotels. So when we're booking the hotels, we send because we distribute the hotel, they know who we are. We send very clear payment instructions of what is in and what is out. And if that doesn't match the invoice, then our systems kick in to get that, to correlate that and to get. And to my knowledge, there's no other entity at the moment in travel that is doing that for every single hotel. I'm not talking about hotels that are creating e-invoices like the major chains. I'm talking about, again, even smaller properties, regional properties, independent properties that don't have the capability to create an e-invoice. We can still do that essentially from the paper invoice by using our technology to scan that, break it down, put each and every spend category into a group, and then push that into our platform so we can make automated decisions to optimize the program.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Conscious of time here. Again, please do encouraging everyone else who does have a question, feel free to use the chat function now, or we can open up to Q&A at the end as well. Moving on to the future. So this is fantastic. HRS is already doing this for so many customers. What's the next? What does the future hold?
Yeah, great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So, I believe on HRS, we believe we're moving from a world where it's retrospectively managing what we did in transient based on the limited data that we had or have, to a world where we're proactively managing spend in a destination. So when there's business travel, we will proactively manage spend in that destination, not necessarily just on the accommodation, but across all related spend. That's where we're moving to, right? So let me give you an example of what we're doing there. We've already ascertained on this call that in the airline world, there's we're getting basically 90% of that through the managed channel, compliant. We have data on that. In the hotel and lodging, let's say 50% on average. But you can see on any business trip, right? There's F&B, there's transportation to and from the venues, airports, train stations, taxis, and whatever. And we can see here that a lot of that spend is just not visible. Some of it is being captured by receipts and diligent expense management procedures, but the vast majority isn't. So what we've done in HRS, we've come up with a technology. It's HRS Pay as you go. So it's based on PayPen's technology, a company that we acquired and pushed and built into our platform. And this allows our corporate customers to have a payment mechanism using the mobile phone. We're all very familiar now with using our phones to tap and go. So what we do here, this can be a corporate branded application where you can proactively assign budgets and amounts to those budgets for particular spend categories, such as taxis, food, fuel, or whatever. And then you can sign that, you can give that to your travelers, and then they can go out into the market, into the destination, and use the application, tap and go, like you do today on your own credit card, tap, 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 tap. And we collect all that information and push that information into our platform. So then you can measure what the expenditure is across all those different categories, and then start using that information to optimize your program. So let me show you a little example of how that works. So here we are. We have, you know, you as a central procurement person or travel manager, you've assigned your traveler a number of different budgets, one for public transport, taxis, fuel, and meals, and that's pre-assigned. It's like a per diem in a way that your travelers can get access to. The beauty of pre-assigning authorized spend means there's no reimbursement. Your travelers don't have to go back to the office and reclaim because you've already pre-authorized it. That's what I'm talking about, proactive spend management. But in this use case, actually, you assign $100 to your traveler, but they realize they need to take a customer out for an extra meal that they never anticipated. So what you can do in real time, you can use the application to basically request an additional budget. That's what we're doing here. So we, as I mentioned, dollars already. So let's request a new budget. Let's say $60 extra because you want to take somebody out. Remember, this is in real time on the fly. You request that. Your manager authorizes that. So we're saying this is for a business lunch. You can put in whatever codes or reasons that you want, extra meal. And this can then get automated, get approved in real time. And then lo and behold, you have a new budget for that extra meal. So when you go to the restaurant, you use this app to pay for it, and it just gets obviously paid for by the app, and all that is reconciled and managed in the background by HRS with this application. So this is something that is it's live now. We have this. It's also, by the way, very relevant not just to employee travelers, but we're also seeing many of our customers are downloading or getting their interviewees or candidates access to an app like this. So imagine I'm going for an interview to my your corporate headquarters, and you've got a real smart candidate. You know, remember, it's all about employee retention. You want to impress this person. You get them to download the app, and they have pre-authorized spend for their trip to the interview, and then at the end of it, there's no reimbursement. The candidate doesn't need to send off in an envelope the receipts and get that money back. Everything is catered for, very sophisticated. Just another use case there. And the beauty, as ever, in HRS, with the applications and the solutions that we develop, is all the data we get from this solution can be pushed into any third party through open API technology, finance tool, engines, whatever, and obviously the HRS platform. So we can use this data and to see what the extra expenditure was to potentially optimize the corporate travel program. So that's, I think hopefully to all the attendees on the call, that gives you an indication of the power of centralizing and adopting new payment technologies. Just to summarize again, the payment mechanisms that I described today are applicable on what we call STAY, the transient travel spend that you guys have, but also in work, meetings and groups. The same mechanism for booking a Regis office or a WeWork office, it's exactly the same. You can use the same technologies and functionalities, and ultimately that gives you the power of one. That's what we call it, the power of one, pushing everything into one platform to really optimize your travel spend.
Fantastic. Appreciate that, Jason. And that's a great answer as well to that question there. I do have another question that's coming. And again, anyone else that does have any other questions, please do use the chat function. We have come to really the end of the presentation. We're going to just show you a little clip as well that really summarizes a lot of what we were discussing today. But the question is as follows, Jason. Do we have some reference? Sorry, pardon me. Do we need to have some reference mentioned in our Air Plus statement? Is that possible to program that with HRS?
Not too sure what that question means, but I think it means that can we put additional information, or can we pass that to the providers, such as Air Plus, a great partner of HRS, along with many other payment providers as well. But yes, we can. So what we can do is the information that we capture during the booking process from the booking tool, booking codes, project codes, department codes, any additional information in data sets, we can pass through into the invoice. We can share that with our payment providers. So and that helps on the correlation between the two organizations. So the answer is a firm yes on that.
Okay. And could we do that just with AirPlus, or is it essentially possible with other providers as well?
No, we can do that with other providers as well. Even though, as I mentioned, AirPlus is a great and long-standing partner of ours, we do have partnerships with many other payment providers. We have a plug-and-play technology. So even if you might have seen some of the logos on MasterCard, Citi, Amex, all the others, if your particular organization is working with a different payment provider, that is not a problem for us. We can just plug that into our engine and work with that. If you do need any more information, by the way, for all you guys still on the call, you can reach out to Levy and Padders there in the UK office for the guys in Northern Europe, and you can also reach out to me directly. We'd be delighted to assist.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that, Jason. Again, please do any final questions that anyone does have, please do go ahead and post them through now. We're just going to play a little quick video. Please do enjoy it and take the moment to post any additional questions you have.
Are you prepared? By 2025, 75% of your workforce will be millennials. They expect a seamless and digital experience, even at work. Do your travelers still pay with their own credit card? Stand in line for checkout and complete expense claims manually? Time for a change. With HRS Pay, trips turn into a hands-off experience for your travelers. One-click booking, no entering payment details. Skip checkout, digital invoice collection, easy expensing, all pre-populated. Not only for hotel stays, but also for meetings and rental cars. Plus, one app for travelers to request, pay, and expense on the go. The end of Maverick Spend, and your accounting will love it too. No more chasing expense reports and fixing endless errors. Move from expense management to spend management. Fix the problem before you spend the money. AI ensures compliance. Level 3 data provides full transparency and optimizes your travel program. Our SLA starts with 95% invoice automation rate. No one else comes close, and it even delivers sustainability information for all spend items. We make pay and expense easy for the traveler and the finance team. HRS reinvents how businesses pay.
Fantastic. And that concludes really that video. Oh, pardon me. And that concludes the webinar in itself. I see no other questions have really come through. Just to sort of reiterate that we will share the recording and the deck as well to everyone who has registered. So if you've registered and have been unable to attend, I can see a few people have been unable to attend, then of course we will send it on. And of course, connect with myself or Jason or anyone at HRS for any further questions as well. And we just want to thank you again for your time today. We are giving you 6 minutes back, so that's great. Again, Jason, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you everyone who participated on the webinar, and we wish everyone a lovely day and a lovely end of week. Have a good one. Bye now.
Bye everyone. Thanks a lot.